Hello and welcome to King's Research Podcast, your go to source for market intelligence. Our conversations are backed by cutting edge research and deep market expertise, guiding you through emerging opportunities and disruptions that impact your business.
Hello, my name is Samarth, and I welcome you for today's episode where we explore the future of business. This series is brought to you by King's Research, the powerhouse behind market shaping insights for industry leaders across the globe. With insights over 30,000 high growth markets and collective wisdom of 850 experts, King's Research is your secret weapon for staying ahead of the curve in this data driven world. Today, we are honored to speak with Stacy Mahler, the US Head of Sustainability at Siemens Smart Infrastructure. With a proven track record in decarbonization, Stacy brings a wealth of knowledge from her 15 years of experience. Her diverse background in product management, engineering, and marketing, combined with a passion for creating a more sustainable future, has helped organizations drastically to reduce their carbon footprints. We are eager to dive into her vision for carbon neutrality and innovative solutions Siemens is offering to the world. Welcome to the show, Stacy.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Perfect. Is there anything that I would have missed and you would like to add?
No, I think you did a glowing review and would like to just have you follow me around and introduce me on every occasion that I have to speak.
I tried my best, though.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, Stacy, let me start with the carbon neutrality. So, achieving carbon neutrality by 2050 is one of the most ambitious and the critical goals of our time, with governments, organizations, communities all playing a part. The question remains, how do we actually get there? While we face multiple challenges around, from technology limitations to regulatory framework or even financial constraints, yet there is also wealth of innovative solutions that can help us to overcome these barriers. In your experience, how sustainability has evolved in the last decade? What do you see are the biggest challenges organizations face in achieving this ambitious goal?
So really the biggest thing that we're seeing is the need for organizations to get started. So you talked about a lot of different players that are part of this ecosystem, and we see the need to just start that journey, baseline. The more participants that you have on that journey, everyone from large organizations like Siemens to small, medium enterprises to communities and municipalities, everyone has to participate in order to get that 2050 target. So we see a lot of the big corporations with very aggressive goals, a lot of investment. What we need is that scale of more participation in that effort.
Right. So has this changed? Have you seen it's growing from last few years, or probably if you compare it to the last decade? I'm sure the larger organizations are paying attention to meeting that goal, but have they? The real action has started.
In the larger organizations, certainly, and what we see now is that the support and influence from those organizations down into the rest of the value chain. So their requirements on their suppliers, their transparency and support of people that are downstream from where they manufacture their products, so the users of those products, improving circularity, end of life of those products. So we see a broadening of that value chain participation that's largely being driven by the organizations at the heart of it.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And as we wake up, still there are a lot of barriers to achieve, because it's not about the large corporations working upon solving it, but everybody has to be involved.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I've seen for the biggest one of the biggest challenges for any organizations with the technical focus, especially in the field like smart infrastructure and energy, is conveying the true value of the solutions to the clients who might not have the same technical background. Say, for example, in the supply value chain, bridging that gap between the technical and the business world is no easy task. It's something that requires both deep expertise, creativity, and you had a career rooted in engineering, but also translating that knowledge into actionable insights. helping clients to see the bigger picture. So, Stacy, with your background in engineering and marketing, how do you approach translating complex technical solutions into compelling value propositions for the clients, for them to understand and really relate to the idea?
So sustainability is a unique challenge in that respect because there's two pieces to it. To your point, there's a translation of the technical value and the business case for change. And in that case, a lot of things that an organization would do to improve their sustainability is already tied to a very strong business case, whether that's energy efficiency for cost savings, whether that's integration of distributed power, renewable sources to improve resiliency. And we're seeing this in our own facilities where we've had to justify a lot of the investment, even in an organization that is dedicating investment to sustainable infrastructure improvement.
Right.
But again, what we've seen is in most cases, the business case is there. The cost savings justifier or the improvement in productivity or uptime justifies the expense. It's drawing those parallels for the people that are making those investments so that they understand that you're getting, kind of killing two birds with one stone in a lot of respects. The challenge is for these much more comprehensive sustainability targets where you then have to go net zero. The people that are responsible for bringing those targets to bear across a large potential building footprint, including fleet, including supply chain, it's really connecting the people. So the business case connection to sustainability is often there, connecting people across a large scale effort over, 5, 10, 20 years. That's really where the challenge has been. And in that case, it's more showing the vision for this journey of understanding where you need to start. In most cases, the target has already been set for where you want to end up. And the value proposition or the messaging or the marketing piece of that is really making that manageable, breaking it down into you don't have to go and do this all right now. You don't have to have it all figured out, but figure out what you need to do within the next 5 years and understand directionally how you're going to get to that end goal.
Right. No, I completely agree. It's like taking the baby steps for the future now, and you start preparing yourself. Perfect. And and I completely relate because there has to be a balance between sustainability and profitability that the businesses face. And you very rightly said that the idea of investing in sustainability feels like a trade-off, probably not in a short term, but in the long term. So if we talk about one of the case studies that you want to highlight, that how you have helped any organizations to, or probably at Siemens, to navigate this challenge.
So I think our own story has actually been really interesting, and we really we translate what we're doing internally into how we help other organizations. So within, and I'll speak specifically to the US, where we have multiple manufacturing facilities, we have a large building footprint of both owned and leased assets, and actually close to 50% of our emissions comes from our fleet. So we have a very daunting challenge around electrifying our fleet in alignment with our targets. So if we look at how we have approached that, it's again really reiterating the idea of baseline, understand what are the key components for that, reaching that target, and giving yourself time, both from a capital planning standpoint as well as an asset management standpoint, to do that in a way that aligns with investment priorities for the organization. So you're not going to go in the case of electrification of a major piece of your production process, you're not going to go rip that out tomorrow.
Right.
You're going to wait until the depreciable life of that asset is up, and then you're going to make that decision when you go to replace that asset. Give yourself enough time, understand today what those targets are, so that as those decisions are coming up, you're factoring that sustainability component into those decisions today.
Right. No, absolutely. And, while we speak about the entire pieces coming together, and I believe that regulatory framework also plays a very major role, in pushing this. Do you agree on that?
Right. I think it depends on where you're at. So
Okay.
certainly for a European-based company, we are feeling that. And as a company that does a lot of business in Europe, we're feeling that. In the
Right.
US, we've seen more of an incentive-based approach with
Uh-huh.
localized regulation. So in the US, I think we're still figuring out what the vehicle is going to be to drive organizations to action. But
Right.
right now we're seeing a mix of regulation and incentive.
Okay. So, the regulatory bodies are not in sync. So there is no standard that we follow across the world. So European Union work, separately. I believe that European Union is more stricter in terms of compliance. So how do you monitor those compliances from
Uh,
different countries' standpoint?
well, and I don't even think it's just different countries, but if you're operating in different jurisdictions. So in the US, this is something we're monitoring with recent regulation and legislation in California, City of New York, City of Boston, where we're seeing pockets of regulation and legislation that are going to require some sort of reporting mechanism. And I
Hmm.
think that can be daunting for organizations to have that data in an auditable, reportable manner, and then making
Right.
sure that they're putting that in play in a way that is in compliance with those different bodies. So
Right.
really, this is where technology can come in to help. This is where software around your energy management and your resource management really plays a big part. And so our
Right.
message is, digitalization of your infrastructure today to prepare yourself not only for the regulation requirements and reporting requirements of today, but knowing that that's going to only increase as time goes on. So getting that digital infrastructure in place today is critical.
Right. And to reach net zero emission by 250, 2000, 2050,
Mhm.
the annual clean energy investment worldwide, we need to be more than triple by 2030, which is currently at, 4 trillion. And this will also create millions of jobs, significantly lift the economic, growth, and achieve universal access to, clean, green and clean electricity. The global smart infrastructure is expected to grow by more than 20% in next 5 to 10 years. Was suggested by one of our reports. What strategies do you recommend for organizations to secure stakeholder buy-in and overcome financial barriers when implementing sustainable initiative, especially given the perceived short-term and long-term benefits?
And are you thinking specifically to that infrastructure? Because that energy infrastructure is a very interesting question. When we talk about some of the key drivers or key levers for decarbonization, a big one is going to be electrification, both
Right.
of transportation as industry, as well as buildings. And we see that at a time where we also see the amount of new infrastructure development increasing. And so, um, how do you support this additional load coming online? So the recommendation, and I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record here, but the earlier you can think about this from a planning perspective. So
Hmm.
understanding within your operations or your footprint, what are those opportunities for electrification? What do you think that's going to look like, and how do you plan for that today is going to be really critical in a couple of different ways. The first is, again, that asset management piece that I mentioned, but also supply chain of a lot of this infrastructure, or
Right.
supporting equipment for that infrastructure. You want to make sure that even though manufacturers are expanding capacity, there's still, from a supply chain perspective, the earlier you can plan, the better. So that's going to continue to be my mantra, because in every facet of this topic, we're seeing the need for baseline today, understand today, have a plan today. And it's not that can't be a dynamic plan that evolves over time, but directionally it gives you a lot more control and a lot more
Hmm.
predictability to go out and overcome some of those hurdles, like the infrastructure, like the financing,
Right.
that we think are going to be, you need to start thinking about it today.
No, no, absolutely. I so agree with you that, all we all, or, every industry needs to look at 360 degree within their ecosystem to figure out how do we do this, get there. Small steps will lead us for a better future. And it is one of the most exciting shifts in the journey towards sustainability, which is growing reliance on the renewable energy sources. As more companies embrace renewable energy, the question isn't just how or why. How do they effectively incorporate these energy sources into their existing operations without facing any technical roadblocks? It's a critical piece to solve this sustainability puzzle. What innovative solutions is Siemens offering to help organizations seamlessly incorporate renewable into their existing infrastructure?
So the good news is a lot of that technology is available today. You have smart
Right.
meter technology, you have controls technology that allows for that integration. You'll continue to see evolution and integration of AI in order to help make that even more responsive and more effective and more productive as you work to integrate that. I think we also see there's a market-based component to this where participation in ancillary markets will continue to evolve. And so software that allows for easy integration and participation into those markets will become more and more critical when you think about integrating and justifying that investment. So from a Siemens perspective, that's how we're thinking about it. We're thinking, how do you make those controls smarter, more responsive, and have more functionality to respond to the different market mechanisms that are there today, as well as what we see on the horizon.
Right. Because it's very fascinating to see, because, data and AI, or rather softwares among them, are transforming every industry. There isn't any industry which is left from data or AI that we speak about. Probably from last 2 years, we all are, in the sea of AIs. And this space is no exception, I'm sure. As we move forward towards the more intelligent infrastructure, the role of data in driving efficiency and predicting trends has become increasingly crucial. Stacy, our audience would love to hear your take on how data analytics and AI are shaping the future of sustainable infrastructure. Any, real life example would be a great, case study for everyone.
It's as we've already talked about a bit, the digitalization and the data is really going to be at the heart of accelerating sustainability and really unlocking the full potential of having sustainable infrastructure. So what we're seeing today is on a few different fronts, and I would say it's in the building space and it's around energy management. So having data to more effectively allow for flexibility in building operation and utilization, as well as making sure that resources are being used most effectively within those buildings. So this could be everything on a university campus. We've seen that if certain pods are not being used or student work areas are not being used, that they're turned off or the energy or resources is conserved. We've seen that in dorm environments. We've seen it most impactfully in lab environments where you have a lot of energy usage. That controls infrastructure in place has really driven a lot of improvement and impact. And then you have it on the energy side, where again we talked a little bit about this, but not only from your mainstream utility grid, but also thinking about the opportunity for microgrids and data and response of on-site distributed assets to help better manage energy. We've done several implementations of microgrid, including we're working on one within our own facilities that's intended to support a greener grid and greener capacity for our own facilities, but also help manage energy load, which is going to be it's this reduce where you can, only use the electrons that you need, make the most use out of them, and make sure that there's enough to go around.
Right. Perfect. That is some exciting developments at Siemens that we are hearing. Especially on the technology side. So, what's happening around the sustainable infrastructure, innovation seems to be at the lightning speed. It is fascinating how quickly the landscape of sustainable infrastructure is evolving. We have been at King's Research monitoring what was once considered a futuristic is now becoming a reality in terms of energy management, smart grid, and more. With your background in commercializing the new markets, you have been at the front row seat to these developments. What emerging trends or technologies in sustainable infrastructure do you believe will have more significant impact in next 5 to 10 years? Probably I know 5 to 10 is a very short term period, but yeah, probably you can divide it between a short term and a long term, from 5 to 10 to 15, 20 years. Where do you see?
I think that the two trends are that we're seeing more right now is this energy transition and really trying to combat the energy trilemma of making sure that the energy that's being made available is both affordable and sustainable. And
Right.
it's reliable on top of that. So that one is going to be really big when we think about the increase in data infrastructure over the next 5 to 10 years. That's
Right.
critical. And again, this is where we see the role of distributed energy and what we're doing in the microgrid control space is really, really exciting. And not only just having that infrastructure in place, but as we talked about, really the software capability to make the most of that, integrating and having that really allows for integration of what we see on the horizon with regard to storage technology, SMR technology, or other clean generation technology coming in. At the heart of all of that is the ability to be able to effectively manage it to meet the load profile of that building. The second one that we've seen, and it was talked about quite a bit when I was at Climate Week back in September, is we hear a lot about smart buildings. And the conversation at Climate Week was, we're done with smart buildings. Let's talk about autonomous buildings, and really the opportunity that presents for efficiency within the building from a resource perspective. So starting to think about bringing, again, a lot of this technology already exists, and the challenge is really just bringing it to bear. And that can be a financial challenge, that can be an awareness challenge, that can be just technology deployment and scale, but bringing some of the technologies to bear and integrating, again, staying flexible, integrating that AI capability and integrating the new technologies that come online. But the backbone for a lot of this stuff is here today.
I completely agree. I'm very excited, for the time that I live in this world, because the pace it is changing, it's incredible. And I think at heart, technology is the one which is driving it. Thank you, Stacy. If you would like to add anything, talk about, probably, I am on the end of this episode. So, I will just leave the mic open for you if you want to say anything, share anything, and then we'll go on to the closing notes.
Yeah, I think you've covered a lot of topics that are really critical for organizations and individuals to think about. I would just reiterate that a lot of the technology piece is out there today. And so, the impact that you can have today is substantial, and continuing to and really set yourself up to take advantage of what's continuing to come down in the next 5 to 10 years. So get started today. That's my message.
Absolutely. I say to everybody that we all together have a social responsibility to make this world a better place. For everyone living and the ones who are coming.
You're 100. It's an individual, and you can do this even in your personal life.
Absolutely.
Everybody has a role to play.
Absolutely. And it's all about being aware and adapting towards a common and a goal which everybody has to work upon. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Stacy, for sharing the valuable insights on sustainability and smart infrastructure. Your expertise is truly inspiring. I hope, and I'm very confident that everyone who would be listening to this episode will be enlightened with your insightful perspective. Thank you so much for joining in today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
That wraps up for today's episode. At King's Research, we are committed to delivering insights that empower you to thrive in high-growth markets. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more expert discussions and data-driven strategies to fuel your growth.